Yesterday was Take Your Kid to Work Day on Capitol Hill, and a kid asked Hakeem Jeffries why people don't trust Democrats. And his answer reveals a lot.
Um, why do voters view Democrats so poorly?
Did your dad give you that question? Listen, I think that we exist in an era right now where the American people are understandably frustrated with institutions. There's a frustration with Congress. There's a frustration with institutional political parties, whether that's Democrats or Republicans. Certainly a frustration with the courts, with organized religion, with the media. Frustration with institutions of higher education. And, of course, frustration with the current President of the United States of America. There's a great frustration.
Hakeem Jeffries identified a real problem. People don't trust the American institutions anymore. When you walk through each of his examples, a pattern emerges that Hakeem Jeffries won't acknowledge. Democrats are either the main cause of that loss of trust, or behaved in ways that makes the American people perceive these institutions as biased. Let's start with Congress. Yes, people are frustrated with Congress, with both Democrats and Republicans. People always have been and always will be upset that things don't get done fast enough. But that's the way that things are supposed to work. Gridlock is an essential part of the system. So that alone doesn't explain the loss of trust. What does explain it is when one party continually proposes structural changes that only benefit their own side. Efforts to end the filibuster during Biden's years, discussions about adding DC and Puerto Rico as states, hacking the Supreme Court. Whether you agree with those or not, you have to admit that those things create the perception that Congress itself is trying to rig the rules in their favor. When people see that, when they see the members of Congress trying to change the system, they see Congress members having no faith in the institution. And if our own Congress doesn't believe in Congress anymore, why should the American people? Next, he talked about political parties. Neither party is perfect, obviously. The Republican Party certainly has its issues. But which party positions itself as the one defending democracy? And then, while doing that, which one completely cuts their voters out of the election process? It's happened at least twice in the last 3 presidential elections. In 2016, the Democrat Party establishment favored Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, and then soft rigged the primaries in her favor. In 2024, the party didn't even allow someone to challenge Biden, and then when Biden stepped down, they didn't allow a challenger to challenge Kamala. Whatever you think of those decisions from the party brass, the perception it creates is that the party elites don't care about the people. Of course, the natural consequence of that is a loss of trust in the party. Next, the courts. Democrats have played a major role in the loss of trust here. Every decision that doesn't go their way is met with hordes of Democrats calling the Supreme Court illegitimate. The discussion doesn't center around legal disagreements or how to properly read the Constitution. It is about the legitimacy of the court itself. Even on 8-1 decisions, like the recent Colorado therapy case, the Democrats discuss the court like it's been overtaken by some radical anti-American force hell-bent on destroying the country, when in reality it's just run by people who interpret the law differently than they would like. Talk like that, or calls for packing the Supreme Court, sends a signal to the American people that the court can't be trusted. Then he mentioned organized religion. And this one is less about direct action taken by the left, but more about party platforms and culture. On several major issues, whether it's gender identity or abortion, Democrat policy is in direct conflict with the teachings of any traditional religion. But at the same time, they like to claim that the Pope is some moral exemplar that should be listened to at all times. But, of course, only when he goes against Donald Trump. That sort of two-faced stance on the Pope, praising him when he's on their side, completely ignoring him otherwise, sends a signal to the American people that they can just throw aside organized religion. It is good when religion agrees with you and totally irrelevant when it doesn't. And it goes further than that. I think of the Ten Commandments debate in schools. That debate is not about whether faith should be taught in public schools. It's about whether the historical significance of the Ten Commandments outweigh its origins as a religious text. The Ten Commandments are maybe the most important historical document in history. It serves as the basis for Western civilization. Without them, we would not be where we are today. But the left turns the debate over its historical significance into a false claim that religious fanatics are just trying to shove religion down your throats. When something that deserves a nuanced discussion gets turned into a total dismissal of religion, then of course people will start to distrust both the political establishment and religion. And I didn't even get into the Democrats trying to force Catholic priests to break the seal of the confessional. So Yeah, they don't get to pretend to see the Pope as some moral exemplar when everything they do is opposed to the Pope's faith. Then there's the media. A lot of Americans believe that the major media outlets lean heavily to the left. And while you can point to individual outlets like Fox that lean right, the perception did not come out of nowhere. Every other major network would not talk about Biden's obvious cognitive decline. They treated Obama like a true celebrity and treated Trump like he was the Antichrist. When that's all people get from the media, they rightly see it as partisan, as nothing more than a wing of the Democrat Party. That's why independent media like podcasts have taken off over the past 10 years, because people don't like the obvious bias that they're getting on mainstream media outlets that pretend to be neutral. Higher education is similar to the media, as most major universities are controlled by Democrats. The leadership of nearly every major university is far, far to the left. When controversies occur in the world that spark protests, the universities always come out in favor of the protesters. Not their right to protest, which everyone agrees with, but with the ideology of the protesters. It's why Harvard's president Claudine Gay was unable to say that calls for the literal genocide of Jews go against Harvard's code of conduct. These universities foster environments where only leftists feel comfortable speaking their mind. And it's not just at major universities like Harvard. At St. Thomas in Minnesota, where I went to school, there was what I still believe was a hate crime hoax. A student claimed that a group of white kids told him to go back to Africa, and then they wrote a racial slur on his whiteboard. I didn't believe it for a second, and the university never found out who those white kids were. But that didn't stop them from holding a mandatory, all-school assembly about the evils of racism in America. At Creighton, where I went to law school, the deans of the law school participated in and pushed the local pride parade on us. It was insane and shows that even Catholic universities and smaller universities are steeped in the leftist ideology. The universities have earned that reputation, and it creates the perception they are more focused on pushing ideology than preparing students for life. And finally, Donald Trump. If Democrats treated him like a normal politician rather than an existential threat to democracy, then maybe people wouldn't be so scared of him. When Democrats say that every election will be the last one if Republicans win, when they say that Trump will run roughshod over the Constitution, people lose faith in the executive branch. You can oppose Trump, you can oppose certain policies and decisions that he makes, like I've done with his tariff policies. But when everything he does, when everything he says becomes a threat to democracy, people lose faith in him. What this leads to, when one party sows so much distrust in institutions, is everyone across the board losing a bit of trust in a few of the institutions. Of course, not everyone has lost faith in every single one of them, but depending on your political alliances, you lose faith in a few of them. I, for one, don't have any faith in higher education. My neighbor might still believe in higher education, but has lost faith in the courts and religious institutions. But across the board, everyone has lost faith in at least one institution, and each of these institutions, or the perception of these institutions, has been shaped chiefly by the left. The loss of institutional trust is not all on Democrats, of course. Trump didn't help with his 2020 election claims, and right now the few Republicans calling for the end of the filibuster doesn't help either. But I just went through every institution that Jeffries claims that people have lost trust in, and the pattern is clear. Democrats bear the brunt of the responsibility. It came from years of politicizing institutions like the court and the school system, calls to reshape the institutions when things don't go their way, and lying about specific people and policies in order to scare the American public. Unless Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats look in the mirror and understand their role, this problem will only continue to grow. Subscribe and like the video for more from me. I'm trying to build a brand based on honest, reasonable takes and not the performative outrage you get from so many online these days. If that resonates with you, subscribe and head to my Substack to get new releases emailed directly to you. With that, I'll see you next time. Thank you.